On August 15, 2006, the world lost someone irreplaceable. Candace Hiltz was just 17 years old, but she carried herself with the kind of strength, wit, and determination that made people twice her age stop and take notice. She was a devoted daughter, a fierce sister, and a young mother whose love for her little girl was as boundless as it was unconditional. Candace's daughter was born with hydrocephalus, a condition that brought daily challenges, but Candace never wavered. She poured every ounce of herself into caring for her child, fighting for her, advocating for her, and loving her through it all. That love was not quiet or fragile. It was fierce, protective, and full of hope. And though Candace's daughter has since passed on as well, there is comfort in knowing that mother and daughter are together again. Their bond unbroken, their love everlasting. Candace was brilliant. She dreamed big, and she had the kind of intellect that could have carried her anywhere she wanted to go. Friends and family knew her as someone who wouldn't back down, not from an argument, not from injustice, and certainly not from protecting those that she loved. She was tough, yes, but she was also tender. Her laughter could fill a room, and her kindness made those around her feel seen and valued. Her life was stolen far too soon, in an act of cruelty that can never be justified. But that is not how we remember her. We remember Candace for her courage, her fire, her humor, and the way that she loved with her whole heart. We remember the way that she looked out for her family, the way that she adored her daughter, and the way that she lived without apology for who she was. Today, as we mark the anniversary of her death, we choose not to dwell only in grief, but also in remembrance of all that she was. Candace Hiltz and her precious daughter both left this world far too soon, but their spirits endure. Their love remains etched in the hearts of those who knew them, and their story continues to remind us of the fragility of life, the injustice of violence, and the necessity of keeping their memories alive. Candace's name deserves to be spoken. Her life deserves to be honored, and her legacy deserves to be carried forward with the same strength that she embodied. On this day, and always, we remember her not just as a victim of tragedy, but as a radiant young woman whose love and light can never truly be taken away. Let us take a moment to hold Candace in our thoughts, to honor her daughter and the family who still feels her absence every single day. And now, with her memory guiding us, we turn to the story itself, not to relive the pain, but to seek truth, to confront injustice, and to ensure that her name, her life, and her legacy are never forgotten. When detectives arrested Robert Charles Browne in 1995, they believed that they were closing one case, one murder, one fingerprint, one young girl taken from her home and left in a ravine. But they weren't just solving Heather Dawn Church's homicide. They were opening a door into something much darker, much wider, and far more terrifying than anyone expected. Because Browne wasn't a one-time killer. He wasn't reckless. He was methodical, calculated, the kind of man who took lives like he was checking boxes. And the more investigators dug into his past, the more they started to realize Heather may not have been his first victim, and she wouldn't be the last name he claimed. In this episode, we confront the man behind the fingerprint. We'll walk through Robert Charles Browne's background, his quiet, drifting existence, his disturbing calm, and the moment he became more than just a name in a file. We'll examine how Lou Smit built the case with forensic precision and why his approach gave prosecutors exactly what they needed to secure confession. But we'll also ask the harder question: how many other lives did Browne take? He later claimed responsibility for dozens of murders across the country. Some were confirmed, others felt like bait. Were they credible? Or were they just twisted power plays of a man who knew how to manipulate the system? We'll look at one of his victims, Rocio Sperry, a young woman from Colorado who vanished under eerily familiar circumstances. And we'll read through the chilling letters that Browne sent to investigators, taunting, calculating, and at times infuriatingly vague. Along the way, we'll also examine the system itself, like the anonymous letter that pointed to a legal disaster in Colorado, a 90-day window in which the death penalty was off the books, right when Browne confessed, a loophole that may have spared his life and shattered public trust. But through it all, one truth remains. Heather Dawn Church's case was the thread that unraveled the lie and the people who brought Browne to justice. John Anderson, Lou Smit, and the Church family refused to let the thread be cut. This isn't just the end of a case. It's the beginning of accountability and the haunting realization of what we still don't know. Hey, Angela, how's it going today?
Hey. That's all I've got. Just noises.
That good, huh?
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. It's been a rough bit. I'll tell you what.
I have to be honest that it's been long enough and you don't have me research, so you get my honest reactions.
Yep.
That I'm having some memory issues. You said Lou Smit. I was like, oh yeah, that's the case we're talking about. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a little bit, but family comes first. So
yeah, and to that, I just want to reiterate our appreciation for the listeners that keep tuning in, even though the schedule is a bit in flux right now.
It happens to everybody.
Yeah, it does. And unfortunately, I'm dealing with a situation where I'm living at the damn hospital, and so it just is what it is. So I really appreciate everybody's support and continuing to support and help out the show and listen to the episodes as we get them out, and eventually we will get things back on track here. So but yeah, I have not slowed down research, that's for sure.
No, he has not.
So I'm gonna have all kinds of new material when we finally get back into the full swing of things, but we're here today, so let's jump into this one. So
just don't expect me to remember a lot, because it's all a refresher now.
Well, and that maybe is good. It'll give you an opportunity to ask questions that the listeners might also have. So yeah, feel free, jump in, ask whatever. So when the name Robert Charles Browne hit the file, it should have been a break, a resolution, a full stop. But instead, it turned out to be a doorway. And what waited on the other side was far worse than anyone expected. So listeners, welcome back to Dark Dialogue, the podcast where we unravel the shadows of the human mind and dive deep into the mysteries that haunt small towns and big cities alike. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Angela. And together we'll shine a light on the stories that keep us up at night, unsolved disappearances, lives stolen too soon, and the questions that refuse to be buried.
In this episode, we're stepping into the aftermath. Robert Charles Browne's arrest, his background, and his eventual confession to the murder of Heather Dawn Church. But we're also looking at what he claimed afterward. Confessions to dozens of murders, some credible, some possibly manipulative, and all of them chilling.
We'll also hear from him directly through the letters he sent to the law enforcement. And we'll talk about the disturbing timing of it all, like the moment an anonymous letter revealed that Colorado's death penalty had lapsed right when Browne confessed.
If you believe cases like this deserve more than just a headline, take a moment now to follow the show, leave a review, give a thumbs up, and most importantly, share this episode. The more people that hear these names, the harder it is for the truth to be buried.
Your support helps keep these cases alive. And it helps us keep asking the hard questions that don't go away just because the system says, case closed.
And one thing that I did want to mention before we jump into this episode that I completely spaced out at the beginning, but we have a whole new website and it's still under construction, but it's all redesigned and you can find all of our episodes there and all kinds of cool stuff and more cool stuff coming. So
nice.
Yep. Check out the new website.
John's been working hard.
Yeah, I've always got something going that I get myself into and say, what in the hell were you thinking? But, but with that said,
Do you ever answer yourself?
Oh, yeah, I always answer myself. Yeah.
So what were you thinking?
What was I thinking when I did this? I thought it was not going to be as freaking difficult and cumbersome as it actually turned out to be.
This is your life, though.
It is.
Okay.
But the cool part about it is we moved to a different host, which allows all kinds of really cool stuff to happen. So we'll be able to do a lot better than just the generic website that we had before. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, this is Dark Dialogue, and this is The Forest Kept Her Silence. All right, so, just the quick recap, because it's been a little bit. We've got, Heather Dawn Church went missing when her mom took the two brothers out to the Boy Scout meeting, and she was going to the parenting group at the church, and Heather Dawn Church disappeared, and the case pretty much went cold right from the start. Then her body was found a couple years later outside of Colorado Springs, about 40 miles from where she was taken from. And then after that, it pretty much went cold again. And so John Anderson, who had worked for the Colorado Springs Police Department for quite a long time, made the decision to go ahead and run for sheriff earlier than he had expected to, specifically because this case had been mishandled, frankly. And on making the decision to do that, he reached out to his friend and mentor, Lou Smit, and asked him to join him at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office if he won to become his chief of detectives.
Right. Okay.
Which Lou agreed to. Anderson won the election, became the sheriff, and Lou Smit came over, dove into the files, found the fingerprint, and realized that it hadn't been submitted to 92 different places.
Jeez.
Resubmitted it to all those different places, got the fingerprint, and found this asshat who was Heather's neighbor.
I've missed that.
Asshat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can always rely on me for that word.
Just text you. Hey, can you just say asshat real fast?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So this douchebag has been arrested and we're moving on from there. So that's just a quick recap of where we're at, because it's probably not been as long since the listeners listened to the episodes as it has since we recorded the episodes, but just in case.
I feel capped. We're good.
Perfect. So Robert Charles Browne was born October 31st, 1952 in Casada, Louisiana. And yeah, when you go to Louisiana, you got all kinds of words that you can't freaking pronounce.
That doesn't sound like one of them, though. It sounds closer to Mexico, doesn't it?
I'm probably saying it wrong.
Am I being stereotypical? I'm sorry.
Well, not really, because if it was Mexico, it would sound more Spanish, which this does. Louisiana definitely has a more French influence.
Oh, so maybe it's Cashad?
It's Cousatta. Cashata. Cashata.
There you go.
I don't know. It's probably something like that. Huge French influence in Louisiana. Well, the French owned Louisiana, and then we bought it from them. So, and then you get this. I don't know. Have you ever been to Louisiana?
Nope.
So you talk.
Does that shock you?
No, not.
I didn't think so.
It would have shocked me if you'd have said yes.
I've been to Kentucky when I was 1.
It's a beautiful state.
That's how
I love Kentucky. But, in Louisiana, you get the French influence, but then a lot of the slaves were brought over from Africa, some of them from like the Caribbean, Jamaica and stuff like that. So you have a strong African language influence. You have a strong like Jamaican influence.
Right.
And you get this, it's like a mix mash of language called Creole. where
Ah,
like you try to listen to them and they see all this stuff and you can't understand any of it. And then they'll throw in an English word and you'll be like, okay,
I know what that is.
Fish. Okay.
Yeah.
But you can't put the English
It's
words
still
together
fun to listen
make
to,
sense
though.
because, and it's so fast, but you know, some of the words are French, some of the words are African, some of the words are English, and it's like all mixed up and it's
Yeah.
cool as shit, but you may as well be speaking all French
Yeah.
for me because I can't understand any of
Yeah.
it. But anyway, it's the most unique state I've ever been to. It's almost like going to a foreign country, not in a bad way. It's
Right.
freaking awesome,
Never been.
but it's very unique.
Not too much east for me, except for, like I said, when I was one.
Yeah.
We went for a 5 generations picture.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
was the 5th generation.
That's cool. So anyway, this douchebag's from Louisiana. He was one of 6 children, born into a military family. His father was in the Air Force, so he moved a lot. He was described as being smart kid, but troubled. And he joined the army.
We all.
I don't think like this ass helps. I don't think so. But he joined the army at 18 and served from 1970 to 76. So he served in Korea. He was honorably discharged as a specialist. And then he was, after the military, he was married and divorced multiple times. He had at least 6 wives. And so, yeah, I mean, the guy is, but he's a piece
He's a
of
collector.
he's a piece of shit is what he is. So kind of his MO is he wines and dines them. He's sweet and caring and all this shit until he gets a ring on their finger. And then he just beats the piss out of them on a regular basis. And I'm
One of those.
I was going to say for no reason, but I mean, it sounds like there could possibly be a reason to beat the shit out of your wives, but there's not. But I mean,
Thank you for clearing that up.
it was so weird. It's like the one woman said, you know, he like pulled into the drive and she was outside and he just started beating the shit out of her. Like he wasn't necessarily mad that she'd done anything or I mean, it was just like he just came home and took out his aggressions. If he had a bad day, he just come beat the shit out of his wife for it. I mean, the guy was a total piece of shit.
Asserting control.
It's like these asshats that kick their dog when they come home if they have a
Right?
bad day. You know, it's just, I can't understand it. But that's the kind of piece of shit this guy was.
Fair warning. I see you kick a dog. I'm going to kick you.
Oh,
saying.
if I see you punch your wife, I'm going to punch you too. So, yeah.
I might not do that because I'll
Equally.
probably get hit back, but I will kick you if you kick a dog.
He worked odd jobs. He worked as a tree trimmer, a handyman, a delivery driver, a florist. And
A florist.
yeah,
Why am I shocked by that?
yeah. And he had a criminal history. In 1980 for vehicle theft, he was convicted in Louisiana, which, as it turned out, was the source of the fingerprints that would be matched by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. So really glad that he got busted for stealing a car.
Good job, Louisiana.
Then he had all kinds of minor offenses, multiple different thefts, assaults. And he moved to Colorado in the 1980s. He'd also lived in California for sure. He just kind of, I mean, I think we all know these pieces of shit that just have really no drive, no
We do.
ambition, no direction in life. And they just kind of float through, hurting as many people along the way as they possibly can. That was this piece of shit. And so, but he lived in the Black Forest area near the Church family by 1991. His personality is described as being quiet, reclusive, manipulative, and he claimed that he had some divine I mean, the guy's a freaking Fruit Loop, like some divine inspiration for killing people.
Of
And
course he did.
according to
That
him,
woman in Canada, God told her to.
yeah, according to him, he has an IQ of 140. I couldn't find like where he'd actually ever had an IQ test. So I can't confirm that, but according to him, he has an IQ of 140. So he's
Oh, and we believe him 100%.
100%. He wrote poetry. He read the Bible
What?
obsessively. Oh, you'll hear some of his jacked up bullshit poetry later.
Oh, I cannot wait.
And so he earned himself the moniker of the devil's right-hand man because
Is it like roses are red, violets are blue? I just come home. I must hit you.
The poem?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's sicker and darker than that.
I just wrote it off the cuff just now, but
yeah, it's definitely darker than that.
Okay.
So
sorry, I derailed your train of thought.
No.
Don't you miss me?
Just the time to hit my vape. But like we talked about in the last episode, he made the mistake, left the fingerprint, and then that's where they got him. Was
Right.
off of that. And then he gave a chilling confession pretty quick after Lou Smit started to interrogate him. And I mean, he initially denied it, like they all do.
Yeah.
And then they confronted him with the fingerprint evidence. Like I said in the previous episode, they were like, have you ever been in the house? No, never been there. Do you know these people? No, don't know them at all. And then they're like, okay, why is your fingerprint here? And then he's like, because I killed her.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like that. So according to this piece of shit, and I have a very, very hard time believing this story, and I think everybody else will too, but according to him, he thought that the church house was empty, and so he broke in there to burglarize it, and Heather saw and confronted him, and so he grabbed her, hit her in the head, and then strangled her, broke her neck, whatever. There's differing accounts of exactly what he said, but he claimed that she was dead before they ever left the house, and he only killed her to silence her. There was no sexual assault. There was minimal struggle. And, I have a very hard time believing that.
Yeah.
First of all, I have a hard time believing that he entered the house thinking that it was unoccupied. I have even a harder time believing that this little 13-year-old girl confronted this freaking monster and, didn't just run and hide somewhere. And I find it nearly impossible to believe that the killing happened the way that it did. And one of the main reasons is if you break into a house and the homeowner confronts you because you're only there to burglarize it and you never intended to hurt anybody, why take the body? It makes no sense. And I don't think I've ever heard of a case where it happened. Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard of a case where somebody is missing from their home and it comes out that it was just a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah.
The robbery gone wrong stories are when people come home and find somebody dead in the house.
Yeah.
There's no reason to take the body. It's not like you can say, well, if I take the body, nobody's going to miss her it's a little girl. Her mom's coming home.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to miss her tonight.
There's another child in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make any sense. I think he was a sick son of a bitch that took this poor little girl to do bad things.
And a lot of the times, if you're there for a robbery and you're confronted, if that's all that you're there for, you run away.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes.
But, there are robberies gone wrong.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of one where they take the body, drive it 40 miles away, and dump it. I have heard of a lot of kidnapping and rapes and stuff that end that way, but I don't buy his bullshit story, but I don't buy most of what this guy says. Anyway, he said that, he accidentally killed her essentially and then took her out the sliding patio door, loaded her in the vehicle, drove her 30, 40 miles out to Rampart Range Road and dumped her in the forest. So
did the little brother see any of this? Was he 5?
Yeah, he was 5 at the time, but no, he was tucked into his crib.
A crib at 5?
Well, a bed, crib. I don't know specifically. You make a good point. He's a little bit old for a crib. No, there's no indication that he saw any of it. And, just a reminder, he had gotten vaccinations that day, so he was running a fever. He was probably sick and sleepy. And so it doesn't surprise me if he didn't hear or see anything, So, we've really discussed a lot about, Lou Smit, his entire role in the case, how he came to determine that this piece of shit was the guilty one and everything. And so once Browne confessed, then he entered a plea deal because he wanted to avoid the death penalty. And so he entered a plea deal where he would plead guilty to it and give a confession, and then he would get life in prison and not the death penalty. So that was the plea deal. I don't think it was a bad one. You know how my opinion on plea deals, but if you have a plea deal where it's like either kill the son of a bitch or he spends life in prison without parole, I don't have near a problem with that plea deal as I do with either life in prison or 15 years, which some of those are so absurd.
Or immunity.
Like, yeah. So, he got the plea deal. And from what I understand, the family they were included in the negotiations with the plea deal and everything. And they were pretty devout LDS and not proponents of the death penalty.
Right.
And so I think they were much on board with the plea deal. He could spend life in prison. He couldn't hurt anybody else. And then they didn't have to deal with the death penalty thing either, because,
we on their conscience.
Yeah. We forget that, not every family of a murdered victim wants their killer dead. Pretty much every one of them wants them locked up for the rest of their life so they can't ever put another family through that misery, but they don't all want them to die. So I think that was the case with the Church family. They were content with this plea deal. I have no personal problem with it whatsoever. And so
I don't know what I would choose faced with it. I mean, I could think about it, but I don't know what I would choose until I was faced with it.
Like death penalty I don't think that you can put yourself in the situation, like with so many things you think but
exactly.
I can say for myself, I feel pretty confident that my reaction to somebody murdering my daughter would be, I want to administer the death penalty my way. And short of being able to do that, and I have heard fathers actually request the judge, just give me 15 minutes alone with this son of a bitch.
Yeah,
I would be that father, guarantee it. And if I couldn't have that wish, I'd want him dead. I just know myself enough. I would prefer to do it myself, but if you're not going to let me, then you better do it. And if this son of a bitch ever hits the street, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And if that means I spend the rest of my life in prison for it, so be it. I'm ready to go. But if this bastard gets on the street, he's out. That would be mine. I'm pretty positive of that.
My dad was that father, and the police actually said we should just put him in a room with him.
Yeah. I think there maybe should be a little bit more of that. Worked out this plea deal, and then he got his life in prison, and so he was sent to prison, and he pretty much stayed completely quiet for 5 years until March of 2000. And in March of 2000, he sent this weird ass letter, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. This is where you get to hear his brilliant poetry from his 140 IQ. Okay.
All right.
In the murky, placid depths, beneath the cool, caressing mire, lie 7 sacred virgins entombed side by side. Those less worthy are scattered wide. The score is you 1, the other team 48. So when investigators got this, what they figured was either one of two things. Obviously, the ending of the letter says the score is you 1, the other team 48. Well, the 1 is Heather Don Church.
Yeah, they found one.
He's been convicted of that one. The other team 48 either means he's killed a total of 49, including Heather Don Church, or where was I going with that?
There's 48 more they don't know about at all.
Yeah, I mean, he gives like these different numbers, right? So he gives 7 sacred virgins.
Yeah.
And then he says those less worthy are scattered wide. So when I read that letter, I don't know if it would be 48 plus 8, the 7 sacred virgins, and then
Heather.
plus Heather. And then, so that would be what, 56?
48 were less worthy.
Yeah. Or if that means that the 7 sacred virgins are included in the 48, which would make the total number 49. So
Might be giving him a little bit too much credit.
As far as what?
Being smart enough to put that together.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows, though, with these freaking lunatics?
That's true. That's true.
So the general thought process from like the FBI and the investigators and stuff in dealing with this nutcase's cryptic ass poetry is it's indicating between 48 and 49 victims. And the thought is that 7 of them that were worthy, he buried somewhere. And the others were just tossed out like Heather was.
Yeah.
And
But Heather should have been worthy.
well, I have no idea what this dumb piece of shit
Deems
considers worthy
yeah.
or not. You know, I mean, when you're dealing with these sick bastards like this, being worthy could mean something like when I was torturing her, she screamed the right way or did the right, responded in the right way. I mean, we don't have a clue what worthy means. It's their brains are completely broken. So trying to figure out what their dumb shit poetry means, it's like Israel Keys' bullshit nonsense.
Yeah.
It makes no freaking sense. And trying to understand it, you got to be a lunatic.
Or you will be once you...
And the hard part is every lunatic speaks their own language. So it's not like we can even take it to a lunatic and say, hey, decipher this bullshit for me. Because every one of them speaks their own twisted, sick freaking language.
Imagine that job, FBI lunatic deciphering.
Yeah, it's John Douglas's job. He's retired, but that was his freaking job.
Wow.
I mean,
There's not a secret decoder ring for that.
not really, but I do think that John Douglas was onto something. And I mean, they did kind of start to understand how these people think, but they also came to realize that each one of them has their own little weird ass bullshit.
Their signature.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's weird. This poem thing it's so cryptic. It's hard to understand what it even means. And so, but we do know that, so that was set in 2000 and they started to investigate it. And he wrote additional letters, like they're detailed in a book that's called Hello, Charlie, Letters from a Serial Killer, that a guy by the name of Charlie Hess wrote. He was a retired FBI CIA agent.
You saw that look on my face, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was like, who's Charlie?
Yeah. So he wrote a book about this. He was a retired FBI CIA agent and worked with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office cold case team, which they called the Apple Dumpling Gang, which I think is kind of cool because that was such a great freaking movie back in the day. Have you seen it?
Yes. It's been forever.
Oh, it's such a good movie. It's Tim Conley and what the hell's his name? Don Knotts.
Oh, Don Knotts.
Yeah, they were so freaking hilarious. Great freaking movie. That was back when Disney made really great movies. I'm pretty sure that's at Disney.
Back when John liked Disney.
But anyway, so Hess wrote this book where he kind of detailed this, and Browne detailed between 48 and 49 murders from 1970 to 1995, covering 9 states, being Colorado, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, California, Washington, New Mexico, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. He provided maps, sketches, victim descriptions, the methods that he used to kill them, and it did lead to at least one verified exhumation, but most were left unconfirmed. And then in 2006, he pleaded guilty to the murder of Rocio Sperry in 1987 in Colorado and received a second life sentence, no further charges. And that was it as far as his convictions. So they were never able to necessarily find any other victims. Rocio Sperry was 15 and was abducted from Colorado Springs King Supers. She was strangled and her body left in a bathtub. And then, like I said, he confessed to that. And so...
Whose bathtub?
I don't know. I didn't really dig into her case all that much, but...
I'm not sure why my brain's always like, whose bathtub? But
I think
it wants to know these things.
I think it was a motel room, if I remember right.
That makes sense.
but don't quote me on that. But,
I fully intend to quote you.
he claimed that of his nearly 50 victims, it included both men and women aged between 15 and 35, he's guessing. Most were vulnerable people like hitchhikers, bar patrons, and he said that he strangled them, he stabbed them, used an ice pick, a screwdriver, some he shot, some he used blunt force. He dumped the bodies in remote areas, rivers, and then he spoke and with enough specificity about Rocio Sperry that they could link that case. But he also said that he killed Faye Self, who was 26, who was a Louisiana bar patron, killed her in 1983, strangled her, left her body in a river. Wanda Faye Hudson, who was his cousin-in-law, he killed in Louisiana in the 1980s.
Never be missed.
Right. He stabbed her. Catherine Jean Hayes, who was known as the Grand Am Lady, killed her in Texas in 91 and dismembered her. And then there's some unverified examples, like the one that he referred to as the Asian Bride, who he said that he killed when he was in the military in Korea and strangled her after raping her. He also said that he killed a hitchhiker in Arkansas who he shot, a woman in Mississippi who he strangled, the flat tire lady in Oklahoma in 1984 who he stabbed. And so he claimed that his first kill was the 1997 bar patron in Louisiana. And then after his arrest and all this kind of shit, he boasted that none ever got away. He killed every one of them that he decided to. And that he had some kind of divine inspiration for this shit and was doing God's work. So, I mean,
because God wants people to kill people, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the guy's
I hate that answer.
I do too. But, he then recanted and said that he made it all up. I mean, he's like so many of these pieces of shit. And you could tell from that cryptic, freaking weird ass poem, whatever you want to call that nonsense. This is a game to him. You don't send a letter like that because, you all of a sudden caught Jesus and now you want to get right with the Lord before you die. This isn't, I want to do the right thing.
It wouldn't be cryptic if it was.
This is a game. He's set in prison for 5 years. He's gotten bored and he needs something to pacify his time. So why not toy with investigators?
Well, and they might not be paying him enough attention now. And
well, exactly.
He wants the attention. How?
With so many of these people, once they're caught, he's doing life in prison. Then why not be famous?
Yeah.
While you're doing life in prison, be a famous serial killer. Some of these desire that fame right from the start.
Disgusting.
They know they're going to get caught. They're almost excited for it because
here comes the fame, the book deals, the movies.
Exactly. And it's a little bit like, I know I use a lot of movie references, but a lot of the shit that is in movies, there's a kernel of truth to. And it's kind of like Kevin Spacey's character in that movie.
That movie.
It's kind of like Kevin Spacey's character in Seven. He wanted to complete his work.
It's in the box.
And then once his work was completed, he needed to let them all know about his work.
Well, and he was,
of course,
final.
His final act was to get Brad Pitt to shoot him, which I would have done.
I'm just going to say I hated how that movie ended because to me it was like the writer was on a good streak and then all of a sudden somebody popped their head in the room and said, you have 10 minutes to finish this, and he just finished it. I was annoyed. I'll watch it.
You would have had to have had a whole part 2 to go much further into that movie though. But it can be a lot like that. Like their work is completed and now they want the whole world to see this great thing that they've done.
And they want to be part of the tableau.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it can just be absolute bullshit. Like what's his name? Damn it. I don't remember. I can't think of it. But he was this moron in Texas that once he got busted, he freaking confessed to everything. He confessed to like 150 murders. Every time a detective would come in, he would be like, yep. And he was really good. He was almost like a palm reader or a fortune teller or whatever. could really read and just get the details from the investigators so that he could make them believe that he actually Henry Lee Lucas, and he could make them believe that he really was the guy that did it. And so this went on. There were detectives coming to Texas from all over the United States to talk to this guy, thinking that they'd solve these cases. And then one pretty sharp detective went over there and she was like, okay. And so she took his confession and all this, and then she tested him and was like, okay, he's full of shit. Because she had holdback information that only the killer would know, and he didn't know it. And then other detectives started coming back and doing the same tactic, and it turns out we don't even know if he killed any more than what he was convicted of. We know for a fact that he lied about almost all of them. Well, all the ones he confessed to, he lied about, because none of them were ever proven to be true. And what makes a guy do something like that? I don't know, but I do think that it is. Well, I think it is a little bit of you're standing in prison, because once you're there, then if you're like this famous serial killer, either one of two things is going to happen. Either one, you're going to get a target on your back, like is happening with Koberger right now and happened with Dahmer.
Oh, sad.
Or
sorry,
you're going to be feared and respected, like happened with Charlie Manson and Ed Kemper.
That's disgusting.
You know, and so, well, I mean, I imagine that Ed Kemper standing 6'9" probably had a lot to do with his respect in prison as well.
Okay, fine.
But Charlie Manson was like 5'2".
Yeah.
But
he was nothing.
He was feared because he was absolutely out of his freaking gourd.
Yes, he was.
But whatever.
I don't think he was ever in it.
Oh, no, he was a nut bar from the beginning. I mean, his life story, I don't know how you could go through what he went. I'm not making excuses for the lunatic, but you don't come through a childhood like he had in any way normal. But I don't know what the motivation is. We'll never, ever know the motivation for Browne, why he confessed and all this kind of shit. I personally think that he's telling the truth. Is he telling all of them? I don't know. Is he padding the numbers? Could there be more? Yeah, I think there could easily be more.
Fluffing it. Yeah.
But could there also be significantly less? Yeah, there could be significantly less. We don't know. And so, you know, it's one of those, it's a tough case, kind of like Sam Little, who, I mean, we know this, that Sam Little likely killed as many as like 130. That's very probable. And he drew pictures of them and told all the details that he could possibly remember. But the problem is, unless you can match the body to the crime and have some kind of evidence to link it to them, it leaves it unconfirmed. And when you're talking about from 1970 in Browne's case to 1995, trying to go back to 1970, find a body, match it up, it becomes almost impossible to do. And so we just don't know. But we know the guy's a killer, and we know the guy definitely killed at least 2 because he confessed and was sentenced for 2. But, you know, like his ex-wives are positive that this piece of shit was killing people in Louisiana before he left there. And I mean, he is an absolute animal. So
do they know from like looking back, or do they know from experience? And can they get in any trouble for knowing these things and sitting back? I mean, I realize they were being abused, but.
Well, we'll address the second part of your question first. Could they be in any trouble? The answer is likely not. I mean, if they had specific details or were involved in some way in the murders, yes. But in this particular, or aiding and abetting after the fact. But that wasn't the case at all with that. When I say that they knew he did, I don't mean that they actually had evidence that he did. They didn't see it happen. He was just such a freaking abusive, evil lunatic to be married to that they were certain that he was out hurting other people. You know, I mean, he would, like a couple of his wives, he strangled unconscious. You know, I mean, he was so violent. The one that I said just grabbed her and beat her just because. She said that she was bruised head to toe after that beating. Like, he got her on the ground and was kicking her. And I mean, just extraordinarily violent assaults on his wives. And so you go through something like that, and then they say, well, he killed somebody, and they're like, oh, I'm sure he killed
Gotcha.
people. I'm sure he killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily, at least in this case, it wasn't necessarily that they actually knew for a fact that he did, but...
Okay. I'm on the same page now. Thank you.
Yeah. So then the next thing that we need to talk about is another piece of shit who is out there, hopefully listening to
Lack of those.
hopefully listening to this podcast. And if you are, come find me, you son of a bitch, because I got a bone to pick with you. So the Colorado death penalty was enacted in 1974 after Furman versus Georgia, which is, I mean, there's a lot of nonsense with the death penalty, and maybe you don't know, maybe you do know, but the Supreme Court made the death penalty illegal everywhere in 72. And then I think in 74, that decision got reversed. And if I'm off on my dates, I apologize. I didn't research this. It's just pulling from memory. But they did make it illegal and then reversed it. That's why people like Charlie Manson weren't executed, because he was sentenced to death pre-72.
Gotcha.
And then once they reversed it, so they made it illegal. So all of those death penalty cases in the entire nation were converted to life sentences or lesser sentences. Most of them became life. But then when they changed it back, they didn't go back and say, okay, now we're going to go ahead and kill you. They just left them.
Grandfather.
I'm pretty sure that the Supreme Court ruled in that case that they couldn't then go back and kill the ones that they,
Damn it.
I mean, I don't agree. I kind of agree with that part of it, just from the humanity aspect.
I was being facetious.
We're going to kill you. We're not going to kill you. We're going to kill you. We're not going to kill you. I have a problem with that right now with the way we handle the death penalty.
You know, I kind of would like them to live in that constant state of, I have no idea, because that's the torture that they were inflicting. So
this is true. But for me, it's very clear cut. If you're going to have the death penalty, then execute it and use it. And if you're not, then don't. But this nonsense.
Does that make it sadistic of me that I'm like, oh, we could kill you today. Maybe not.
This nonsense
maybe tomorrow.
Of like sentencing somebody to death and then they live for
72 more years.
Right. I mean, we just had the case, it was a couple weeks ago in one of the southern states. I can't remember, but you know, the guy fought execution because he had a pacemaker and they didn't know how the drugs were going to affect the pacemaker and all this shit. And now his legal team is getting the pacemaker records to analyze whether it affected, but
what does it matter if it affected him if he was death penalty?
Oh, I could give two shits, but my point is he didn't have a pacemaker when he was sentenced in, I believe it was like 1980. It was definitely in the 80s. He didn't have a pacemaker when he was sentenced to death then. So if they'd have killed the son of a bitch when they should have, instead of waiting 40 years to do it, we wouldn't have this discussion about, do I think that it's cruel and unusual to execute somebody that is a feeble 80-year-old man? Yeah, I could say I don't really like that. Like, kill the bastards when they're young and spry and 25 and just got done doing their shit.
Well, you know, the taxpayers paid for that pacemaker, and I want it back.
Yeah. Well, it costs so much to house these people for 40 years. To end it with an execution is dumb as shit to me. If you're going to execute people, execute them.
Just, yeah.
If you're not, don't.
However, like we've said, make sure they really deserve it.
Absolutely. And I believe that they deserve their appeals and everything. And I am not a huge death penalty advocate. Like, I don't.
No, I realize I just sounded like I am, and I'm not unless it's warranted. But
I don't come down like if we just did away with the death penalty, I wouldn't necessarily agree with it, but I wouldn't necessarily have a huge problem with it either, because
the have to build 15 more prisons.
Well, the issue is we kill so few.
That's true.
I mean, maybe 10, 12, 15? Probably, I can't imagine that we kill more than...
Quite a few recently.
I can't imagine we kill more than 20 a year in the United States.
Yeah.
Definitely, I don't think we kill 100. it has no impact whatsoever on the prison system. And they're already housed for 20, 30, 40 years before their execution. So to me, it's just pointless. It's pointless.
Can we just send them to where they do the Naked and Afraid episodes and just leave them there and
I don't care.
just let them fend for themselves with the anacondas and the wild boars? And
Yeah, I don't
that's
care.
how I feel.
I don't care what they do with them. But
and we save our taxes to, you know, fix roads and shit. Yeah, let's do that.
But so anyway, we have this situation where
John's trying to keep me on track.
and I'll try to explain this the best that I can. But so the death penalty was enacted in 1974 after Furman versus Georgia. But it was rarely used. This is in Colorado. One execution between 1967 and 1997, a guy by the name of Gary Lee Davis. And then the death penalty was abolished in Colorado completely by Governor Jared Polis, who I'm not a fan of, in 2020. So there is no death penalty in Colorado currently. But the Colorado statute required prosecutors to file death penalty notice within 63 to 90 days post arraignment. And if that was missed, it barred them from ever being able to seek it later, even for new crimes. One of the most dumbass freaking statutes I've ever heard of in my life. Who would do that shit? But
Apparently that guy.
Colorado did it. Well, it was Colorado legislatures that did it. So the DA didn't file for Heather in 95 because they had this plea deal. And so he went with the life sentence without parole. And then because of that, then when this piece of shit was then later convicted of Rocio Sperry's murder, he wasn't eligible for the death penalty, but he was sentenced to death. And then the son of a bitch who is welcome in my office right now to have a conversation with me is the anonymous piece of shit asshole that wrote an anonymous letter to Browne explaining this loophole in Colorado law, which then Browne exploited to get out of the death penalty. And let me tell you what, if you're a son of a bitch that is so in love with a almost certain serial killer, but I don't even give a shit if he never killed anybody else. If you're so in love with a piece of shit that killed a 13-year-old girl,
oh shit,
you need to be in there with him. I'd strap both your asses in the electric chair side by side and pull the switch on both of you together. This pissed me off so freaking much, if you couldn't tell.
I couldn't.
That some asshole would do this and not even put his name on it. Come on, grow a pair. If you're gonna take sides with a freaking serial killer, at least sign your name at the bottom so you can live with the kind of shit that you have coming to you. But no, he didn't. And so we don't know who sent the letter. It was never figured out, but we know that it was sent, and we know that the Robert Charles Browne was able to wiggle his way out. And so
I have a feeling you're sooner to meet Mothman than this guy.
You're probably right. Yeah. So, but anyway, it is a little bit of a quirky part of this case, you know? And so, but it really leaves us, you know, it leaves me anyway, really scratching my head. And we've talked about this on multiple different episodes. I'm sure that we're going to continue to talk about it because it's something that I really personally struggle with. And that is, you know, Lou Smit, obviously he's dead now, but he did a fantastic job on this case. John Anderson, man, I have oodles of respect for both of those guys and what they did, literally changing their lives to solve one case. Yeah. I mean, these guys really deserve all of the accommodations in the world that they could get. And so I don't believe that it's their responsibility. And I don't believe that John Anderson as sheriff can responsibly take his taxpayers' money and investigate 50 crimes scattered across the United States where he doesn't even have jurisdiction.
Or know if they truly exist.
Right. And in these other states, I don't know that they have the same obligation. I really struggle with this because, you know, they have limited budgets. And as taxpayers, I also don't want the government taking more of my money.
Yeah.
You know? And so, but I don't know what the answer is to this. But the fact that we have maybe as many as 50 victims and we've only solved 2, we've only given closure, if there is such a thing, to 2 of those families. It's something I struggle with. It's something I struggle with in all of these cases. And I don't know where that responsibility lies. You know, I do know that we have a lot of FBI agents that are doing bullshit nonsense.
Yeah.
In Washington, D.C., which a lot of them are getting ran out and put back up where they belong, solving crimes. But a lot of them in Washington, D.C., I know that we had all kinds of new IRS agents hired and all. So my point is, I think the money's already there
It's been allocated for bullshit.
Yeah. And I realize also that currently murder is not a federal crime, and I don't want it to be. I don't want the FBI getting more jurisdiction. But why couldn't there be an FBI team or some kind of a federal team that takes these cases that nobody else is going to work because they can't afford to? And their job is solely to try to solve these cases potentially linked to these serial killers. You know, cold case units have their place, and that needs to stay local. And if they want FBI help, then they can call in and ask for help. But you have a case like this, and it's not the only one. We've got, you know, I mean, Israel Keys, but that is handled by the FBI. But there's so many of these cases. I mean, we talked about, we did the serial killer episode on Rocky Mountain Reckoning, and almost every one of those, as soon as we got done talking about their known victims, then we went into this whole long list of potential and suspected victims. Nobody's working those cases. Nobody's getting those families answers. And they kind of fall into this black hole of, we're pretty sure we got the guy, so we're not going to investigate it anymore. But the family can never hang their hat on that, you know? So I don't know what the answer is, like I said, and I do not believe that it falls on local law enforcement to do it. I don't think it can. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the budget. It just can't be their job.
Yeah.
And in most of those cases, they don't have the jurisdiction because it's outside of their city or their county or their state. But I think somebody needs to do it.
Well, the small goal of ours is to help people do it.
Right.
So hopefully it grows to a bigger goal, but it is one of our goals as far as I'm concerned, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me.
100%. And because nobody else is doing it, it falls on us true crime advocates. It falls on web sleuths. It falls on us investigating these crimes from home in order to do that. I think that a great solution, and we've talked about this before, is for these states to pass laws that give access to information to vetted investigators.
Keyword vetted.
Yes. I think you should have to go through some sort of a vetting process, you know, and I said before, if I got to go get my fingerprints taken, get a background check done, do whatever, and that opens the door to like the backside of NamUs, you know, and the other information that is reserved only for law enforcement, then do that. But just leaving them hanging is not an answer. No. There's a better way to do this. There's definitely a better way to do this.
Because it could happen to you and you don't want to be one waiting 50 years for answers.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's not me, I don't want...
Well, I meant you as in the you, general you. Not you,
the
John.
The general you, yeah. And I mean, just the human part of you alone...
That's what I meant.
...should demand answers for strangers. You know, I mean, should demand answers for everybody. And it
kind of goes back to that golden rule, like do unto others.
Yeah.
You would want somebody helping you.
Yeah.
So if you can help somebody, help them.
Absolutely. You know, and it goes back to something that in a lot of places we've lost in this country. And I will say that in the true crime community, it's the one place where it still is alive and thriving.
Yeah.
And that is...
Which is an odd thing to say. The true crime community is chivalrous.
But it's
Really?
one of the few places. I mean, it used to be that, if a man, was a murderer or something like that running on the loose, the townspeople got their guns and went out
Would go lynch him.
or well, at least protect the town.
Yeah.
When Charles Starkweather was on his murderous spree, the people all across Nebraska and the southern part of Wyoming, they literally were on the roofs of buildings with their guns protecting the town in case this animal drove into town, and they were going to take him out. That you talk about the Dalton gang, which we're going way back, but when the Dalton gang went in to rob that bank in Missouri, I can't remember the name of the town, the townspeople were ready for them, and they put an end to the Dalton gang.
There needs to be a little bit more of that, I think.
Well, but this is where I'm going, is this is in the true crime community is one of the few places in society where this still exists, where we as a group, collectively, the true crime family, listeners, creators, all of us working together, we're one of the few groups that are like, I don't have a clue who Star Valley Jane Doe is, killed in 1972, but by God, I want to find out.
Yep.
And
or the online neighborhood watch.
We do this, but there's thousands of us out there. Everybody's kind of doing their part, which it's a really neat thing to be a part of. And they make a huge difference. Online sleuths, the responsible ones, which we've discussed, but those that act responsibly have done so much good for families, for the victims. I mean, there has been multiple cases solved by podcasters and by crowdsourcing justice. And, Sheila Wysocki, she was...
Oh, yeah, we love her.
She was pretty much responsible for solving the murder of her roommate. It's just, there's been so much of it. And I think that it's absolutely awesome, but it's one of the few places that exists. And that's why, like the Dark Dialogue Collective, Dark Dialogue Adoptive Victim Program, it's all geared towards that. It's all geared to capturing that and just kind of wholesaling it into one place where information can be shared amongst people. A lot of that happens on Reddit too. Yeah. But it's just, I think the community's out there. I think that we have enough people that are willing to do it. We need the government to get the hell out of our way.
Yeah. It's a really easy way to be part of something special and make a difference.
It is. And, if, for all the true crime junkies, which probably most listeners of us are, I think every true crime junkie feels the same way. Every one of them I've ever met does. Yeah. And that is one. If I could solve one case, if I could help one family, then I would do anything.
I've done my job.
I would do anything to just have one that I helped, Mm-hmm. And so I know that we've talked about that many times, and I'm not specific. I would like to, I'll take any of it. Find one missing person, identify one identified person, or put one piece of shit in prison. Like, I'll take any of it. All of it's a win. I'm not picky.
It truly is. It truly is. I want names for Jane Does because that just breaks my heart.
I know.
It just breaks my heart. It just drives me nuts that some of them aren't even Jane Does. They're just numbers. And that is
thousands.
That is not what any of us humans are meant to be.
Yep. I mean, when you dive into NamUs, so many of them are just known by their NamUs number, which is always a UP for unidentified person. Yeah. So it's MP and UP on NamUs, but it's like MP or UP 7462, or that's it. And it's just tragic.
It's tragic is the word I was going to.
And then so many of them, well, not so many, all of them have no story. That is incredibly sad. It's really sad when we have an unsolved case and we don't know what happened to them. But it's even more sad when we don't know who they are. Like, nothing. We don't know
what happened,
where they are born. We don't know where they went to school. Their entire existence.
Who's looking for them?
Yeah. Their entire existence on this planet has been erased entirely.
Yeah.
That is tragic.
Except for a bedroom somewhere whose parents have kept it exactly how it was when they left.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so freaking sad. But
we got off on a big tangent this time, but
we did. But that is the Heather Dawn Church case. And that's pretty much where it ends. You know, we know that John Anderson went on as the El Paso County Sheriff, and then he retired. And then Lou Smit, he went on, obviously, to be invited into the John Benet Ramsey case, where he really rose to fame with that case and all the work that he put in on that case. John Anderson kind of gets, he doesn't mind this. I think it's how he prefers it, but he doesn't get near the credit on that with the John Benet case, because it was Lou's baby that Lou kind of handed off to him. But John Anderson is still actively working that case today, along with Lou's children, who have maintained his spreadsheet. And we talked about that. And
he too is another person who can walk through this door just because we want to shake his hand.
John Anderson? Yeah, 100%. And it's like
not only inviting people we want to yell at.
No, absolutely not.
I just want to make that clear.
It's like I think they did like a nonprofit type thing or something like that, but there's a group of investigators working with Lou's children.
I remember you telling me
John Anderson, and they all are working together to try to solve this case. And so, yeah, hats off to them for sure. And then, you know, Lou Smit, I don't know if...
No, it's not a big gesture, but I kind of want to send him a gift basket or something. Like, thank you.
I don't know if I'm unique, probably, or if Lou Smit's name is recognizable to everybody else as it is to me. I don't know. Had you heard of him before?
It sounded familiar, but I could not pinplace where from until you said John Benet.
Gotcha.
Obviously, it wasn't Heather Dawn Church, but when you said John Benet, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then I've mentioned throughout this, but John Anderson wrote the book, which was published in 2021. And the name of the book is Lou and John Benet, A Legendary Lawman's Quest to Solve a Child Beauty Queen's Murder. And
I need to read that.
Yeah, I have it. You can borrow it from me anytime you want. But
I'm not shocked.
It's a great read. It's a really good book, and it's told from somebody that, you know, so many of these books are written by researchers, and that's great. I've nothing against that. But John Anderson worked with Lou Smit and worked with Lou Smit on this case, and so you're kind of getting as close to Lou Smit's take on the whole thing as is humanly possible. Told from a guy that really admired Lou Smit, but I don't think that he also doesn't like bullshit. He doesn't sugarcoat things or anything like that. He just tells the true story. So it's a great book. It goes into a lot of his personal history, John Anderson's history, and kind of how he came up in the ranks. He talks about Lou Smit. He talks about their friendship, and then obviously then spends a lot of time. But one of the really cool things is he's produced all of Lou Smit's drawings and everything of the crime scene. They're all in the book. And so it's just
interesting.
It's a really good book. I'm pretty sure that it's also available on Audible, if that's your thing. But
not sponsored, but just go read this book.
Yeah. No, I don't get nothing for this for sure, but I hope that John Anderson does, because he deserves it, you know? And so anybody that wants a really great true crime book, and one that's well written, because some of them suck. I mean, they have great information, but you can't get through 5 pages without wanting to blow your head off or fall asleep or something.
John doesn't mince words,
but
you know how he feels.
But this is not like that. It's a great read. It's a fast read. It keeps you interested. It's not just facts and figures and nonsense. He does that, but in a way that keeps you engaged. So, you know, it's a really great, great book. I don't know about that, but
I think so. And I think there's people out there who agree with me.
Well, I appreciate that. As long as I'm entertaining people and doing the job that we set out to do, then I am content.
Exactly.
And then we also have to talk about the Church family. Obviously, this poor family was never the same.
No one ever is.
Of course not. You can't lose a child or a sibling and ever be the same. So after Heather's murder, the family really withdrew from public life for the most part. They've done a few shows. They did, well, Michael, her father, at least was interviewed for, I'm pretty sure it was the Homicide Hunter episode that dealt with this case, but they're really not out in the public eye very much. Her parents went ahead, obviously, with their, I guess not obviously, but her parents did go ahead and get divorced. They were it was pretty much final by the time of her death. So they did. And then her brothers, they grew up and they dealt with all of this nonsense. Well, I don't really know much about them. And like I always say, I don't want to. I hope they're living a happy life, unburdened by this as much as possible,
If they want us to know, they can reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the family has spoken publicly only a few times, but when they have, it's always with grace and quiet resolve. They've thanked Lou Smit. They've praised John Anderson. They've honored Heather, not just as a victim, but as their daughter,
Right.
And I think so many times all of these victims are boiled down to the last horrible thing that happened to them, and their entire lives are forgotten about. So I think it's really important. That's why I'm really passionate about the victim tributes that we have on the website, where I focus very little, almost none on the crime, just a brief overview of the crime, but focus on the victims and their lives and what a gift they were to humanity for the time that they were here. And I think that's important as we tell the stories. That's why when we do these episodes, we try to tell a little bit about their family lives and stuff like that, because they're way more than the last.
And the horrible thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So many times you're talking about victims from anywhere from, babies all the way up to 90-year-old people who were remembered for something that lasted minutes, or in terrible situations, days or something, but just a small part of their entire lives. And I think it's important that we remember that they're more than that. So Robert Charles Browne thought that he could count on silence. He thought that drifting from state to state, hiding behind routine and discarding victims in forgotten places would keep him invisible. He thought the system was too slow, too overwhelmed, too indifferent to ever catch up with him. And for a while, he was right. But silence has a limit. And in Heather Dawn Church's case, it ended with a fingerprint. It ended with a man like John Anderson who refused to forget. It ended with a detective like Lou Smit who knew how to listen to what the evidence was trying to say. Browne didn't confess out of guilt. He confessed for control. He dangled names, hinted at numbers, claimed he'd killed dozens. And maybe he had, but behind every confession was a deeper cruelty, the manipulation of truth, the exploitation of grief. He was the kind of man who believed that the world would never catch up to him. But Heather did. Her name was the one that broke the silence. Her case was the one that exposed him. And in doing so, she gave voice to every victim who never got a second look. Lou Smit would go on to chase another shadow, one that still haunts Boulder to this day. And when his time came, he passed that work to the only person that he trusted with it, John Anderson. Two men bound by truth, by evidence, by a shared refusal to let cases grow cold without a fight. And the Church family. They never got their daughter back, but they did get truth. They got the name, and they got the answer that they were owed, even if it took years longer than it should have. So many cases don't end with justice, but this one did. And it happened because someone chose to speak louder than the silence. So we've spent the last 4 episodes telling you about Heather Dawn Church. We told you how she was only 13, how she disappeared from her own home, how a fingerprint cracked the silence. We told you about the detective who found her, the sheriff who wouldn't give up, and the man who finally said her name and admitted what he had done. We told you about justice, about failure, about resilience. But before any of that, before the case files, before the news footage, before the headlines, Heather was just a little girl. She loved art. She was quiet, but not shy. She was thoughtful, patient, the kind of kid who noticed when others were hurting, the kind who didn't mean to be the center of attention, to be the center of someone's world. Heather was the oldest child in the church family. That meant something. She was a helper, a calming presence, someone her younger brothers could look up to. On the night that she disappeared, they were at the Cub Scouts, just boys out living a normal Thursday, never imagining that life as they knew it was about to shatter. Her mother came home to an open door, an empty chair, and a silence that screamed louder than any words ever could. Her father, already separated from her mother, would spend years under the cloud of suspicion cast by a broken system that didn't know what else to do. Her brothers would grow up with more questions than answers, trying to rebuild their childhood in the shadow of a sister who was always just out of reach. And yet, Heather still had an impact. She changed the course of the sheriff's race. She brought Lou Smit into that scene. She exposed a serial killer who thought no one was paying attention. She reminded a state that justice delayed doesn't have to mean justice denied. She mattered, and not just because of how she died, but because of how many people fought to make sure her death wasn't the end of her story. You see, victims like Heather are often reduced to a few terrible moments. They're described in past tense, boxed into timelines and evidence charts, but Heather was more than the case that followed her. She was that child, that sister, that daughter, a friend, a human being with a full life ahead of her. She never got to finish middle school. She never got to fall in love. She never got to go to prom, to graduate, to find herself in her 20s, or to make bad coffee in her first apartment. She never got to choose who she would become. But we remember her anyway, not as a statistic, not as a headline, but as a girl who mattered. Heather's legacy lives on, not just in the case that was solved, but in the people who refused to let it go cold. In every detective who now asks harder questions. In every parent who double checks the locks. In every sheriff who understands that leadership means listening, even when it's hard, even when it's too late. She mattered to her family. She matters to us. And she should matter to you too, because Heather Dawn Church deserved a full life. And even though she didn't get one, the truth she uncovered has the power to change the world for those who still can't. So this is for Heather, not for how she died, but for how fiercely we remember her.
We're not recommending any particular documentary as the definitive version of Heather's story, but if you want to see how her case has been portrayed in the media, there are a couple of options out there. Forensic Files Season 12, Episode 12, titled Telltale Tracks, gives a factual overview with a focus on the forensic breakthrough that helped solve the case, and Homicide Hunter covers it in Season 8, Episode 16, Who Took Heather. That one's more dramatized, but it touches on the early investigative efforts. Just know going in, like with most true crime TV, there's a mix of fact and storytelling. If Heather's story moved you, if it made you pause, made you angry, or made you think, don't let it end here. Take a moment right now to follow or subscribe. Give the episode a thumbs up, a rating, a review, whatever your platform allows. And most importantly, share it. Share Heather's name. Share her voice, because the more people who hear her story, the less likely are to let silence win again.
You can also support the work that we do by visiting darkdialogue.com. There you'll find full case files, bonus materials, and our Adopt a Victim program, where you can help bring attention to victims whose stories have fallen through the cracks. If you'd like to contribute directly, you can find us on Patreon and on Ko-fi. Every dollar goes toward keeping these investigations alive and public.
If you have a cold case we should cover, a lead, a theory, you can reach us at info@darkdialogue.com. We listen, we follow up, and we don't forget.
So this marks the end of Heather's arc in The Forest Kept Her Silence, but her legacy is far from over. The work that John Anderson and Lou Smit began continues, and the impact of Heather's case will echo through every future investigation that refuses to be ignored.
So thank you for walking this path with us, for listening, for caring, and for remembering Heather Dawn Church. Not only as a file number, but as a daughter, a sister, and a voice that finally broke the silence. And I do have to say, thank you for John for putting in all this effort.
Oh, absolutely. It is my pleasure. It really is. So listeners, this is Dark Dialogue. Keep listening, keep fighting, keep telling the stories, and remember, keep the dialogue alive.